and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Front. Today, I have my friend and amazing and humble individual, Dr. Rafael Grossmann. Doc, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Scott. Pleasure to be here, really.
Well, Doc, let's tell the world about you. I think you're pretty well known with the advancements in technology, your risk taking that I would per se. But you're a healthcare futurist, technology innovator, immigrant, surgeon, and educator. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about where you started.
Yeah, well, I'm from Venezuela. I'm originally from Venezuela. Caracas, Venezuela is where I grew up, where I went to med school. Then I did a social service, the rural service, we call it, to pay our social debt because med school is free. And then I basically learned English and I came to the States, did my residency in Ann Arbor, Michigan, then went back home and then came back to the US, trying to seek reach my full potential, I guess. I've been in Maine for the last 17 years and I'm a full-time surgeon, but I have this parallel career in a way, trying to be also a thinker, an innovator, trying to think outside the box, to use technology in a way that can empower and augment how we do healthcare, how we do education, how we increase access to healthcare. Those things are the things that are important to me.
So I actually met you at Exponential Medicine, where you were a speaker. You've been on the board, and you've been in that community for a very long time. So thank you, Daniel Kraft, for inviting me and introducing me to Dr. Grossmann. But one of the things that you did when you went up on stage is you talked about technology. Basically, if providers, and I don't want to quote you here, but if providers don't use technology, they will be replaced, type of thing. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that and how and also talk to me about your quote, your favorite quote.
Absolutely, Scott. Well, yes, I think that technology is part of what we do, right? From carving a stone, back in the Stone Age, to going to Mars, in the next few years, right? Possibly. So it's all about how we use the technology. I would say that one of my favorite quotes or phrases is, it's not about the technology, it's about the smart use of technology to make medicine more humane and to empower us to bring medicine and also medical education to what it should be in the year 2020, in the 21st century. I really think that we have the potential to do much better than what we accept today. So that's probably a fair saying, I think.
Well, and one of the things that I notice a lot of times is, whether you go to the pharmacy and you see this, right, or you go to your physician and you see more of, instead of that, and the quote that you had mentioned, which was, technology is an asset to the basic and most important qualities of a medical provider: compassion and empathy. And I think those two things that you talked about, those components within a provider of any type, is more important now than ever, when the consumer, and I said this to John Nostra the other day on his LinkedIn, the consumer is the patient is not the consumer. Today, yes, I would say the patient is a consumer, because today there's a need, there's a kind of a misunderstanding of where to go, what to do, how to do it, and who's the best at doing it. I think tomorrow the customer will be the loyal client of that service or of that provider. And it's, how do you get to that consumer versus how do you just offer a service when somebody's sick? I believe people are going to be healthier. They're going to seek services when they're actually healthy because they want to maintain health. And so we talked about that so many times from the exponential growth and medicine side. So that's truly important to me. And I think finding that path and maintaining empathy throughout that entire thing and personalizing that interaction is super important. I do want to talk to you about some of the myths that are going on. You've been a huge advocate of the mask wearing, and I don't want to make this political. I just want to hear about more of the myths that you've kind of heard, and just what are you doing to kind of shut them down within your own practice?
I think it's all about science. It's all about facts. It's all about giving the example. Okay, you cannot talk this way and then do that way, right? I think that is really important to behave that way. I think as physicians, we care about people. We care about the patient. We care about people outside the hospital, about our families, about people we know, people we don't know. And I think that we need to try to not just be, doctors, nurses, or pharmacists. We need to be sort of evangelists, okay, of what a rational and safe behavior is in every sense, talking about smoking, talking about drinking, talking about drugs, talking about, protecting yourself, wearing a mask, the social distancing. I think that that's our main role. Be educators, be communicators of what safe life should be. Not to do healthcare, but to do beyond healthcare, the accepted healthcare. As you know, we do sick care, right? We care for problems. We try to fix problems. I think the goal is to try to educate so that we act before the problems come, before the disease appears, before the symptoms are there. This is the key, I think.
Well, and it's the push and pull, right? I'm sure you have colleagues. I have colleagues that maybe on the opposite side of our thinking or what we've known as well, and maybe get source of information from other places. I think what we've tried to do as a healthcare system is go with what we know. I mean, medicine itself is a practice. It's not like you know everything about surgery that you'll know tomorrow. You're going to gain so much knowledge between now and next week of something, because that's who you are. And that's medicine. It's constantly growing. So the fact that, we have the public or some certain colleagues getting upset because, wearing a mask. I mean, I get the idea. I get again, let's not be political here, but let's simplify it to wearing a mask. It's really not that hard. And, you're a surgeon. I mean, how many hours? What would you say the longest you've been in surgery with a full bodysuit and mask on?
Wow. Well, I would say probably not that long. But I would say about 4 hours. The whole process.
So more than 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Just making sure that you can make it through a grocery store and not have any issues. But, there are other things going on with some of the vaccines and, what the next big boom in healthcare is. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think we need to look at it like a blessing. In the past, we've always seen one source like the FDA or the CDC alone say one thing, we all do it. So I'm really happy actually to see some type of debate or people coming to the table to talk about these things, not to say you're wrong or you're right. No, to say here's a problem. How are we going to fix it? What's the best way to fix it? I think that's the difference that I'm seeing now. I do want to talk to you about your view on really connecting with individuals outside of healthcare, because I mean, you can take as many risks as you want, but you're not a designer. You're not a software technology expert. So what is your view on that? How do you even approach that kind of concept?
I think I'm a big fan. I think of the mindset of team play. Right. This is a team sport, like we say. It's not about the physician. It's not even about the physician and the patient. There's so many other players. There are so many other variables that are as important as any other one. In healthcare, especially. We talk about the pharmacists. We talk about the scientists. That we talk about the people who keep the hospital clean, and the people who bring the patients to the operating room. From nurses to patients to every player in the equation. Up to the patient and their family members have a saying. And I think that is all to all of us to, again, I always emphasize communication and connectivity to, at the end, have the best experience, the best outcome possible. This is so important. And, we can't forget, the next generation, right? The ones who are behind us. We don't focus as well as we treat and care for someone. We need to make sure that the people behind us is getting that so that they become better than we might ever be. As the world is changing, they need to be seen that their roles are going to be maybe different, but the same goal. The goal of empathizing with a human being who might need your help to heal. So I think that's the key. We can even beyond medicine at all. I think, like you're saying, software engineers, hardware creators. I always kid with the people I know who are software developers. I say, you guys are the ones who really write the spells so that we can make the magic happen. That is very, very important, because we are nothing alone. We are team players as humans. And I think that we need to keep that mindset.
I think it's crazy because we talk about this all the time in education. You know, it's the researchers that give us the data so that we could practice. You know, but we're always talking about the provider or the pharmacist or whoever the case may be. But like, let's all be honest, the real ones are the behind the scenes, behind the curtains. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the janitors, and I truly appreciate that because people overlook that sometimes of how important roles are, and it's all inclusive. We're a team, like you said, you know, and I think it's even more important to network that way. When we're in school, we get taught to work with each other. You know, you get to an idea, and then it's 3 doctors or 3 pharmacists sitting around a table with all the same skills, you know, and so that doesn't really go that far. And I could tell you from personal experience. Anyways, but I will like to, you know, discuss a little bit about how well, your experience with innovation. I mean, we talked about the idea of the Google Glass, the Magic Leap. So talk to me a little bit about what are you doing with those devices within your, you know, again, your first surgeon to do that during live surgery, but what are you exactly doing within your practice with those? And then I will get in a little bit of what you envision the pipeline, the next big pipeline in healthcare to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I have tons of gadgets and prototypes and devices in my office. You know, it looks like more like a MIT Media Lab space than a surgeon's office. But it's fun, you know, and the fact that I've sort of been a little bit of a pioneer and innovator in certain fields, you know, give me that advantage, I guess, of getting, you know, different, you know, gadgets and things delivered to me all the time to try and give feedback. I'm pretty big on social media, and you know, I have a blog and Twitter and LinkedIn, and so it's fun and it's important, I think. But if we don't give a feedback, if we don't give an opinion of how to shape things that are potentially going to be used to help patients, then I think that the battle is maybe the war is already lost. So it is important to, again, integrate all the players, you know, even the end user, especially the end users. But you know, there are so many devices out there. The technology is exponential, right? It's not linear, it's exponential. So we talk about that all the time. And the adoption of that technology, the acceptance of that technology, the change of mind, the education, the culture, it takes time. The regulation, it takes time. You see how we've been trying to do telemedicine, right? Telehealth for many, many years, decades. And it took, you know, a virus.
Pandemic.
You know,
Yeah.
Overnight.
You and I've been hitting our heads, and then all of a sudden technology grows and you're like, I've been saying this for so long. Why did it take you to hit your head?
So, and the same thing happens with, you know, head-mounted displays. You know, you got a Google Glass, right? Google Glass device. Then you got devices like, for example, the Blade device, you know, which is, you know, magnificent, a sort of augmented reality tool. 2 devices more complicated, like, for example, you got the Oculus Quest 2, right? You're immersed in a virtual reality. Something that was created for gaming, right, now has become a medical tool. You see the work at Cedars-Sinai with the Brennan Spiegel, and the stuff that XR Health is doing, for example, with teleconsultations in VR. They're even reimbursed, so reimbursement is not an issue anymore. And then you go to devices like, you know, the mighty, as I call it, the mighty, you know, a Magic Leap, right? The device that basically brings the space around you to be your desktop. So I think that when you look at these devices that are not gaming devices anymore, they are devices to revolutionize the industry. We talk about the 4th era of computers, right? 4th era of computing, where you have not even the touch computing, the desktop computing, the character computing going backwards, but now it's the space is your computer. And imagine the potential of that in healthcare. Imagine the potential of having the medical record in front of you, of having a radiologic image in front of you, to be able to put orders in, to call a colleague to see what you're seeing remotely. Imagine the potential of that head-mounted displays to enhance how you care for the patient.
Now,
Importantly,
go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't
and
mean
more
to
importantly, to connect you well with that patient, connect you better, you know, rather than separating you from the patient, you know, with the digital health that we, you know, you're actually connected, you're embracing that patient, you're touching that patient, you're hugging that patient, you're establishing a better empathy and connection with someone. And at the same time, you have access to all those important digital health features that are so important today.
Well, and you talked about that being an asset when we first started talking about the quote. And, I'm wondering, are you able to see MRIs and X-rays at, right there instead of, I mean, because as a professional in healthcare, the most frustrating thing is to have a patient in front of you and not have enough information to truly paint the picture of what's needed. I think it's wonderful what you're doing, but is that something you're able to see? Are you able to see those X-rays? Are you able to see those MRIs with those headsets?
You are able to, but unfortunately, because of the culture change that is necessary and the regulation is something that we don't do routinely at all. And
Mm,
there are some places that are working with, let's say, pilot programs. This is absolutely something that is doable with, if you think about software and hardware. You look at the work of Philips and HoloLens, Microsoft
mhm.
HoloLens. You look at the work that Mighty Magic Leap is doing with Brain Lab. It's all possible. It's being used clinically, except that before that becomes a general tool to be used by anyone in healthcare, we need a lot of changes and a lot of paradigms in a way to be taken away. And we are getting there. We're getting there, and it's real, and this is happening. There's no question about
Well, I think this is one moment where, we've talked about so many different efforts from healthcare professionals to work together. I think we should all see more professionals at the front steps of Congress at, maybe virtually at this point, but,
that. Mhm.
and knocking on doors and I mean, I hate to say this metaphorically, but throwing pebbles at the window, trying to get attention and please don't do that at home. And the biggest thing is we need to collectively do that because it's going to gain us more information and access to better serve our patients. The healthcare system, as you know, is really the costing side is those chronic care managements that are not being taken care of, and they become from an infection to a sepsis type of thing. And we could treat the infection. The sepsis is where we have a problem, and cost effectiveness and so forth. I think once we get to that point, we're going to be great. But I think that's where we healthcare providers need to start getting into politics, getting into committees and policy work and government affairs work, where we could talk to innovators like yourself and go to conferences and take that back to Congress. Because let's be honest, the kind of average science information is like a ninth grade level within that realm. And I think we need to showcase what's really going on behind the scenes and at these conferences that we continuously talk to each other about. The next thing I do want to get into is, first of all, what do you see? Just real quickly, what do you see as the next big boom in healthcare? What innovation? What technology?
I have to say, artificial intelligence. We've had artificial intelligence and machine learning for years and years, right? But I think right now we're seeing this inflection point where artificial intelligence is being developed so fastly and so quickly, and we've seen so much of it applied in many areas of human endeavor, but especially in healthcare, that we are going to finally not even pay attention to it, but we'll have a lot of systems driven by artificial intelligence in a way that we won't even notice. And we talk always about Amara's law, where exponential technologies initially they're very hyped up, and everyone is talking about them, and then those same technologies years later they're completely underestimated. You don't even think about it. So that's what we are going to very soon be with artificial intelligence, I think.
Well, and it's funny because I actually was, I'm in education. I was just speaking to somebody. They're creating an artificial intelligence book to better serve the way that people learn, whether it be a visual learner more so, more text based, and try to organize a textbook based on that learner. So that's going to be some cool stuff to see even from that level. I do want to talk to you a little bit. How do we serve a global market? How do we solve that problem? Because there's so many people out there that don't have the access still in our country, in other countries. How do we serve through technology?
Well, that's a big one. I think that it's so important that we know that as many other things, right? Healthcare is unequally distributed, right, throughout the world. If we look at the Lancet study, back the Lancet Global Surgery Report, 2015, 5 years ago, 5 billion people. 5 billion people, two-thirds of the world's population, did not have access to safe or affordable surgery, for example. One example, right? And that is unacceptable. I think that in the days of probes going beyond the universe, we need to do better than that in order to connect, communicate, and provide access to healthcare to the whole world's population. I think that being communicators, being connectors, being evangelists of the potential of technology to make medicine better, to make education better, and to make medical care more humane, it's one first step. I think that we need to work hard. You know, you look at medical schools like Kaiser Permanente Medical School, where it's a free medical school. It's targeting people of lower socioeconomical statuses, targeting diversity, inclusion. That is beyond, a dream. I think that that's the way it should all be. Talking about artificial intelligence, you see how we are thinking now about bias in AI, and that is real. Bias in a research. When we do research and we come up with all these great conclusions, then it's not inclusive for the whole population. It's just a group of people, usually people who are not minorities, who are included in these trials, and then the results apply to them, but then forget about the rest of the people who might be minorities here but are majority elsewhere. So that is very, very important.
Yeah, and mix that with social determinants and incentivizing. I have a master plan. I was just talking to Maria Filipova the other day, and prior to this, she's going to be on in January. I was just speaking to her about the importance, all these food deserts and places that have. I grew up with places. I mean, it was the coolest thing was when we got a Starbucks. That was like the most corporate, I guess you could say, healthy item list where I lived, and that's a problem, because it's not feasible for companies. And I think through technology and incentivized processes, this is the way we see in employee health relations. I think we can incentivize people to buy healthier things, to buy into, follow consumer trends, to help to reduce, because of volume, help to reduce the prices that it costs to offer that access to begin with. So I do think it's amazing. You and I will talk offline about that. I don't want to waste your time at this moment, but I will say, I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the barriers in our education system real quickly. I know this may be a little bit controversial, and providers as well. Why does it take students to get to you to see this kind of content? Why are we waiting around? What is the problem? And why is it you and exponential medicine and that kind of culture to give to the providers? How do we fix this situation, Doc?
Yeah, it's a hard one, Scott. I think that, you just got to be open. You just got to express yourself and try to, again, connect and communicate. That's the key. I always try to as much as I can to reach out. Social media is a great tool in order to get info, but also to give yourself to others without any barriers or limitations. And that especially applies to younger people, to students, people who's hungry for a change, for innovation. I think that it is so important that we become really paladins, evangelists, preachers of all the potential of technology, and especially on the younger generations. We must do that. It's incredible, the hunger out there. I've done in the last couple of weeks, a bunch of seminars throughout the world, global keynotes or global seminars, mostly with universities or schools. And it's amazing, when you get those questions and you see the hunger for really wanting to change and reach out there and help people. It is amazing to see that. And it's only up to us to try to do that. And eventually the system will change. I think that it will, but it's up to us.
So wait, you think the world needs more people like you and I? Oh, I don't know about that, Doc. That's a little aggressive of an approach there. I think people wouldn't agree with that much there. I want to thank you for coming on today. I know right now we're going to do a little show and tell, which we'll get to in a second. But for our listeners on the podcast, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming. For all of our listeners, where can they find you?
Well, I'm very active in Twitter, and you can get the link through you. But I think Twitter, LinkedIn, and certainly my blog, my website, which is rafaelgrossmann.health. I think that that is probably the best way to get to me. And I'm always open to have a good conversation, to help in any way I can. And as much as my schedule allows me, I'd love to connect and continue this conversation that is so important. I really appreciate what you're doing, Scott. This is amazing.
Well, if it means anything to you, I wish there was more of you in the world. Honestly, you are one of the most humble people I've met in healthcare, and you've been open arms. You've been so supportive through troubling times, and I truly appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I want to thank you again so much for the information you provided. Thank you so much. Everyone, I hope you have a great day. We're going to get into our show and tell session, but please stay tuned. Follow at Disruptive Front. And we will be posting all this content so you could get your eyes and ears on it. But I do appreciate everybody. We're on Spotify, iTunes, and our main area is LinkedIn and Facebook. But I look forward to seeing all of our viewers there. Thank you guys and have a great day.
I think technology can help solve most of the problems that we have, especially in healthcare and in education. I do love technology, but it's not about the technology. It's about the smart use of the technology in order to enhance how we do things, especially how we do and how we teach healthcare. Paradoxically, I think healthcare can be improved and made more humane by the smart use of the technology. I always talk about how the most important qualities of a physician are mercy, empathy, compassion. Those are things that technology will never be able to do. But we can enhance and allow us to rescue that part of medicine by using the technology in a clever way. If we think about technology has evolved, if we think about, for example, the first cell phone that was invented by that guy, Marty Cooper, in the 70s, and how this cell phone or smartphone, not really quite smart yet, it was able to storage 30 phone numbers, and that was considered a lot to what we have now, right? These devices like the iPhone, a smartphone that was created only a few years ago in 2007, and how this device has more computing power than probably the computers that send men to the moon. So we really have to really wonder. Right now it's all about digital health, it's about wearables, it's about devices like the Apple Watch, which can check an EKG and have an AI algorithm that can detect whether it's normal or abnormal. We have devices like the Fitbit Sense that can do the same, and these devices can also measure pulse oximetry and temperature and activity and whatnot, but especially they can connect to the cloud and make our health overall better by AI analysis of big data. So devices like the Oura Ring, that is also pretty fantastic. You can not just check activity and how you sleep and having a sleep algorithm that helps you sleep better, but also check your temperature and beyond. So all those devices, in a way, because we use them in a smart way, can improve how we do healthcare. If we think about devices that can allow us to go into virtual reality, right? The Quest 2. That is a device that you probably all know, a device that allows us to immerse in a digital world. This is part of the armamentarium right now in healthcare. We can use VR as a new weapon in the surgeons, in the healthcare provider armamentariums, in order to heal people, to treat pain or anxiety or PTSD or whatnot. So it is pretty phenomenal what is happening out there. If we look at what GoogleGlass did just a few years ago, right? I call it the Model T of augmented reality glasses. I was able to connect a couple of students remotely to what I was doing in the operating room, and that caught a lot of attention, and that in a way catapulted me to be a sort of a paladin of exponential technologies in healthcare. Devices now like this new blade, the View6 blade, that is really a powerful healthcare tool in a way to allow us to connect to other providers, to do augmented reality, to connect to the internet, to message, to pretty much do anything in order to empower us, to enhance us, to augment us in order to do a better healthcare. Devices at the point of care, point-of-care ultrasound, for example, like the IQ Plus device from Butterfly that allow us to do an ultrasound by connecting it to our smartphone and also connect it to an AI-based cloud that makes us better. Compare that device to a big ultrasound machine that costs thousands of dollars. Devices like the Echo stethoscope that I use frequently when I am examining, especially during the pandemic. I'm examining patients and I don't need the tubing. I can connect this device with my ear pods, and also having an AI algorithm detect whether the patient has a murmur or not, and help me make a better diagnosis, help me in a way become a better physician. Two devices like the HoloLens, which is a magnificent computer, head-mounted display, right, that allows us to do computing in this space, right, manipulating that digital realm, that digital reality in ways that we never were able to do it before. So this is the future of healthcare, but it's the future of healthcare here today. To finally, devices like the mighty Magic Leap, right, a device that will become a tool for digital health, for digital surgery, to do computing in this space, to allow us to immerse ourselves in the metaverse, in the magic verse, by manipulating the desktop in this space. So unlimited possibilities. We see what Brain Lab and Magic Leap are doing with the mixed reality viewer, for example, allowing a better education of the patients, better diagnosis, better planning of the surgery, and even treatment with the guidance that extended reality allow us to do. This is really phenomenal. So I think that today is a very important time. I think that we are at the cusp of a major revolution in healthcare, and I think that it is really an honor to be a part of this. So I hope we stay connected, and I hope that we can continue to discover new ways to enhance and augment how we do healthcare by the smart use of technology, without forgetting that compassion, empathy, and mercy are the most important qualities of a physician today. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.